Welcome, everyone. I think we'll get started, and as people join us, we'll be pleased to have them. So, good morning, everyone. I am Kathy Henderson, and I'm the CEO of Moreland City Council, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Moreland Says No to Violence event for 2020. And this year, of course, we're an online webinar. Now, I acknowledge that those joining us today may be on different traditional countries, but Moreland and where I am right now is on the traditional country of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. And I wish to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as the traditional owners of the land that I'm on and that we're meeting on. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present and elders from other communities who may be here today. I want to acknowledge and honour that many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have made Moreland home, and in doing so have contributed to the positive and rich diversity of this municipality. I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome the Mayor of Moreland City Council, Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon, the councillors who have joined us today. I welcome the councillors, and I'm sorry I can't name them personally, but I know that we have councillors with us. Welcome. And I believe that Dr. Tim Reid has joined us, who's the local member for Brunswick. So welcome, Dr. Reid. And can I welcome our keynote speaker today, Paul Zappa, who's the General Manager of the Men's Project at Jesuit Social Services, and he's the co-founder of Club Respect.
Thank you.
Now, I'd also like to welcome representatives from three of Moreland's long-standing key partners in preventing family violence. And these three have kindly agreed to provide video messages in support of our important work and awareness raising that we'll be able to view later. And they are Jenny Smith, CEO of Northern Community Legal Centre, Inspector Brian Matthews from Victoria Police, and Women's Health in the North, I think Helen Riseborough, the CEO. And I'd also like to acknowledge apologies from Peter Khalil, who's the Federal Member for Parliament for Wills. Now, before we get started, I would like to inform everybody who's online today that this webinar will be recorded and shared on social media platforms. If you don't wish to be identified, please let the host know through the chat function. And I also want to recognise and acknowledge that some of you may have lived experience of family violence, or may be supporters of family members, friends or colleagues who are survivors of family violence. I want to honour your strength in contributing to the prevention of abuse in our community, and thank you for being here. Now, in 1999, the United Nations General Assembly designated the 25th of November as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And public bodies across the world organise activities and raise public awareness of the issue. And Moreland City Council has always been at the forefront of this. This webinar today is an opportunity for us to demonstrate our mutual commitment to a safer and more equitable community. One where we don't tolerate violence, abuse, including coercive control. Now, our keynote presentation today from Paul aims to inspire, but it also may contain some challenging content. So if anyone who's viewing this feels that they need to talk to someone after this webinar, you can call 1-800 RESPECT, 1800 RESPECT, which is the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Service. It's now my honour to introduce Moreland's Mayor, Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon, who's going to share a few words with us all. Welcome, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy, and welcome everyone today. I too would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people at Ceres, and I am home here, who's home to the Kingfisher as well. I'd also like to acknowledge that Tim Reid has joined us today, and also that the Deputy Mayor, Mark Riley, I believe, has joined us today as well. So we are here at the start of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The 16 Days campaign is a global initiative dedicated to ending gender-based violence and raising awareness about the impact of violence on women. We are, of course, meeting today on Zoom because of COVID-19, and I'd like to acknowledge that COVID-19 has brought its own challenges for domestic violence and has seen an increase in family violence. This is a role we can all play at Moreland around respect for women and calling it out. It's a campaign run by Respect Victoria, and it encourages each of us to call it out when we hear or see sexist, disrespectful or sexually harassing behaviour. As well as being a counsellor, I'm also a social worker in the North, and I deal regularly with people fleeing family violence and with carers who are predominantly women experiencing violence that they cannot leave. I'm also a woman in politics, and so I have experienced sexism, I suppose, in this role, but I generally count myself lucky that what I experience is generally demeaning language, an entitlement over me, or a perception that I need to be less aggressive or calm down. However, there's other times when what you're lucky to have not experienced is femicide and is a rape or a death of a woman. And as a woman in Moreland, there are certain cases that, do definitely resonate with us all. Sorry, I just want to acknowledge a few. So I'd like to acknowledge that Celeste Mano from the North has just been named as the woman recently murdered in her home in Mernda. And I'd also like to acknowledge that for a lot of women in Moreland, Eurydice Dixon and A.M. Massaro were two incidences that really hit close to home. For me, it was probably the Jill Maher death. I know for a lot of people who were on council at that time, that being an incident in Brunswick, we really felt that. That night that Jill Maher died, I actually walked home. I live on Hope Street as well, so about an hour before I walked home the exact same way as Jill Maher. Prior to that, I'd never really seen my streets as dangerous, and I would walk day and night. So I think all of us women have an experience like that, whether it's really close to home or one that we read about in the paper or where we know them, that then kind of reminds us of what it is like to be a woman and the risks that we face. I'm really glad that we've got this session today and that we are talking the hard truths around it, because calling it out is really important at every level, but it's also acknowledging that days like this is not really what's going to make the big change. It's working every single day of our lives to change the culture and to protect our women. I've now got my own daughter, and so now more than ever, it's really important for me to see that we really have real change. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Carly Hannon, for those really important words. And we're very fortunate to have as Mayor someone who is working as a social worker and is working with making the world a better place every day. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for those words. Now, I'd now like to introduce our keynote speaker, Paul Zappa. Paul's philosophy for working with people is underpinned by an empathy-based approach that draws on research into the impacts of trauma and neglect. His work focuses on prevention over intervention and developing communities based around respect, compassion and kindness. And as the General Manager of the Men's Project at Jesuit Social Services, Paul has led the creation of prevention initiatives using the Man Box research as foundation. Now, the Modelling of Respect and Equality program, or the MORE program, plus the Unpacking the Man Box training sessions have had significant success, and these programs are expanding across Australia. And they help people to better understand the negative impacts of outdated and toxic forms of masculinity and assist boys and men embrace healthy expressions of masculinity. So Paul is going to give a presentation now. After the session, there will be time for audience questions. So please submit your comments or questions through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll come to those questions at the end of the presentation. And now it's over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Kathy. I've just realised I'd like to share my screen out. Would you mind giving me permission for that? And while you're doing that, I'll talk. Can I just say that was a coroner? That was a councillor. That was a wonderful introduction. I love the way you spoke to the reality of this in our world. I'm very fortunate. I had a wonderful mentor, Jackson Katz, a gentleman from America, and he taught me that we always should name our work as men's violence towards women. The reason being that it's the men who we need to work with. And so I always go out of my way to mention that family violence predominantly is an issue with our men. And rather than looking and pointing fingers and blaming, I've had a lot of success in working with men to appeal to their best sides, a growth mindset, a strength-based approach. And so today I'm going to share with you how that's resonating at the moment. So I've worked in this sector. This is my 10th what was White Ribbon Day event that I've been at over 10 years' time. And bear with me, I'm trying to do two things at once. And I'm probably more, I think I'm more hopeful than ever this year. And it's because that I've seen changes. Thank you. I've seen changes happening. And I think that in this way that we are working with young men and boys with this growth mindset on the back of this man box model. Okay. And so bear with me. I've just had a technical, I've just shared you the wrong screen. I'll go back. I'll keep talking. It's the one. Sorry. Moreland presentation. I've got 20 presentations in the next 2 weeks, so that would be the reason why I just grabbed the wrong one, and I'll start again.
Thanks, Paul. It's all good.
All righty. So we're working towards the elimination of men's violence against women, and I really appreciate what the councillor said. We need this day every day. This day every day, and whoever you are listening now, you have a role to play, all of us, men and women. And that's the journey I'm going to take you through now and point out what it is that I think we could be doing. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to pause and recognise all the women who have worked in this sector for so long. And if it wasn't for those wonderful women, I wouldn't have this platform to speak to today. And I think the way forward is when men and women work together through gender equality, we will solve this. And so I'm encouraging men and women to see how they can come together in the workplace, in the homes, in the community that they live in, and work towards anything, the smallest thing you can do to change the attitudes, behaviours and beliefs of young men. That's where I'm going today. We did research on this thing called the man box, which I'll explain on the next slide. And I'm giving you the absolute briefest account of it. It basically said that if I'm a young man who thinks I have to be a real man, I wake up in the morning, I put on a mask and I behave the way that I've been told I should behave. No one ever sat me down and had that conversation with me. It just got in. Yeah, society just taught it to me. So one of the first pieces of this research, 2/3 of young men have been told that a real man behaves a certain way. They've been told. And that takes us to the negative man box, which I'll show you in a minute. But that picture is my hopeful picture as well. Because if men behave a certain way because of how they've been told, if we can change the narrative and tell a new narrative, then we can get change in how we behave. So this is a real opportunity for us. Briefly, the man box, how it works. I've asked thousands and thousands of young boys, what is a real man? Give me some words. And these are the words I commonly get. Strong, tough, in control, muscular, sporty, player, and many more words. I want to belong to that because it's the group in which I feel belonging and I feel perversely some safety in there. If you do the right thing in that box, there's a comfort in there, although you see some things done that you're not really happy with. And it has a self-policing mechanism, and men mainly, but men and women can keep this going. So these are the words that if I try and step out of this man box, these are the words, and these are just some gentle words, really, you'll know worse, that are used to keep me in. Yep, Paul, get back in that man box. You're gay. Oh, that hurt. In I go. In our longer form training, we go in and we look at these actual words, and they give away because have a look at them. Generally speaking, they're references to homosexual people, women or women's body parts, people with disabilities, race and religion, and even animals. And by examining the language, you can start unpacking what's happening, that men have been told that they are the dominant culture and that all these other people are below them. And I always use my hands here, that if you look throughout history, that when a person or people think they're up here and the others are down here, violence flows downhill. Violence flows downhill. And you'll get the language of this. You'll hear people refer to those women, those Aboriginals, those boat people. And when we dehumanise people, again, violence flows. So I'm going right back to some of the most simple things we could do. When you hear this language, this is the policing language that keeps me in that man box. There's our spot. There's our opportunity. So we're not so much going out looking for people having fights. It's way, way, way back into this space. That's where our work needs to be done. Do you want to see an action? You've probably all seen this. I'm going to show this clip and you'll understand. Oh, we've just jumped past it. Actually, it's not, if it doesn't play, I'll talk to it. In Greece, we've all seen the movie. John Travolta falls in love with the girl, comes to school. She's supposed to have gone back to Australia. He sees her at school. Oh, my God, what are you doing here? And it's all love and love. And he stops and he pauses and he turns around and all his mates are behind him. And he changes into this whole, yeah, how you doing? I'm really cool, da-da-da. And she storms off. That is the man box at work. That is the man box at work. And when you hear about sexual harassment, particularly in the workplace, particularly if it's that yelling out at women across the road, it's the men performing for the other men often to maintain their position in the man box. And it's also the man box belief system that they're entitled to speak to women this way. So when we dug into the man box research, we found that you're 20 times more likely to sexually harass someone if you believe in man box rules. I'm going to show you this clip. Have you got the sound to this?
No, Paul, I don't think we can hear the sound. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's me, and get this right. It's really worth showing you this, and I just didn't tick a button when I went to screen share. Here we go.
The Men's Project asked 1,000 Australian men aged 18 to 30 about the pressures to be a real man. The pressure to be tough, to be the breadwinner, to always be in control, and to have many sexual partners. It's these rules that make up the man box, and there are more people in there than you might think. When asked about these rules, 2/3 of those surveyed said they were taught a real man behaves a certain way. 47% believe they should act strong, even when scared or nervous. 1/3 believe men should be the primary provider for their families. And 37% believe they should know their partner's whereabouts at all times. Adhering to these rigid norms and stereotypes that make up the man box can be unhealthy and harmful. Young men inside the man box are those who more strongly believe in the man box rules. Compared to young men who are outside of the man box, these young men report poorer mental health and have a variety of behavioural issues that are harmful for them and others, particularly women. For example, 44% of those inside the man box reported suicidal thoughts in the previous 2 weeks, compared to 22% of young men outside the man box. 47% perpetrated physical violence in the past month, compared to 7%. 46% made sexual comments to a woman or girl they didn't know, compared to 7%. 31% get drunk once a month or more, compared to 22%. And finally, 38% have been in a car accident in the past year, compared to 11% of those outside the man box. Improving the health and well-being of our boys and men requires action across our entire community, but it starts with each of us thinking about the expectations, attitudes and behaviours that we communicate to our sons, brothers, mates and partners. Let's all break free from the man box and give boys and men the freedom to be the person they want to be.
Okay, to me this is the missing piece of the puzzle that we've been waiting for so long. We knew 10 years ago that the man box behaviours lent themselves to men being more violent towards women. And we always had a bit of a throwaway line because we didn't have the data that would say, and we don't think it's very good for men themselves either. Now we have clear evidence, and this has been done around the world and it keeps repeating itself, that the more I'm aligned with outdated forms of stereotypical masculinity, the more my own health and well-being is influenced and towards the negative around thoughts of suicide and physical bullying, sexual harassment, all these issues involving women as well, traffic accidents and binge drinking. So being in the man box is horrible for me, and it's horrible for those who live in my sphere of influence as well. So I now have much greater success in getting straight to men in this conversation. In the past, I'd have to get them to imagine, particularly young boys, a future partner and a future relationship and how they're going to be at that time. Now I go straight to them and I say, this is impacting upon you. Those man box rules, if you adhere to them, they're impacting on you and those around you. And then once I mention and those around you, we go straight to violence against women. So I can bring men in much more easily and bring this idea of men and women working together as a solution. What we've done beyond that now is we've created an adolescent man box, and we've begun research on young men. And we're finding that it's like the growing ground, if you like, into the real man of the ages, say from 18 onwards, and we're working with adolescents now. And we're finding that the constant effort that adolescents have to be on their game to be a real man, they're not allowed to show their emotions. Anything that's homosexual or female is weak, and so that's how they put each other down. And this is the part for you. This is the part for you. The controlling is the language. The man box is controlled by language. So if you hear a young person saying to his friend, mate, you're running like a girl, and if you challenge them about it, normally you'd say, look, I think that's not very nice towards women, or you might let it go because he said, oh, we're just mucking around. There's a new conversation to be had. Do you realise that that's demeaning towards women? Do you realise also that's a man box statement that actually traps us inside this man box, and it leads for you for having poorer health and wellbeing outcomes, and also the people around you will be affected by that. This is a whole new discussion. So when I said at the start, it's actually small stuff. Really, really, if you focus on the language and around maybe even the attitudes that come with that language, that's where our work is at. If we're going to take men, a lot of men in this space will fear that you're taking my masculinity away. You're emasculating us. We're saying the opposite. We're giving you more. This is better. This is it adds value, strengths-based, and we've called it healthier masculinity. So when you're talking to your friends, colleagues, kids, It's a strength-based approach. It's the best person you could be. It's how lovely would it be if you could just be yourself, that kind, caring, compassionate person. That's where we're shifting towards. Plural masculinities, very important. When I work with a group of young men, if all the men that are on this webinar, let's say there's 50 men, there's capacity for 50 different types of awesome masculinities. There's no new man box. Get rid of the one size fits all. That's what's been hurting us, because we have to live up to something. Now, on the healthy end of the scale, being the best side of your best self, that's what we're going for. That's what we're encouraging men and boys to work towards. To find out what these new healthier masculinities can be, and does that start that I have to go and write textbooks about what it's like to have healthier masculinity? I want you to do a quick activity just in your mind for me at the moment. I want you to think about a man in your life you really admire. You really admire them, and on a bit of paper or just in your mind, I want you to put down 3 qualities that's what it is about them that you admire. And imagine, to help you out, someone said, this man's asked, because you've got a great relationship with them, would you please do their birthday speech? So you're doing their birthday speech. What are you going to say about them? What are their 3 qualities that you really admire? Now, if we had more time, we'd get everyone to put these into the chat and all those sorts of things. To save time, I'm going to tell you, we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of words to start with, something like courageous, loving, caring, kind, respectful, listener, and then we'll get like good bloke, and then every now and then we'll get empathetic, caring. We did it yesterday with a school, and then we did it with staff, all the same words. So if you want to talk to people about what healthier masculinity is, you could either use that little activity, what you admire in men, and then imagine that list of words now, and they're all written there. You make your list. Have another look at it again, and it is genderless. I could have had the same list of words for a woman that I admire, and I'm doing her birthday party. Men and women working together, the answer's right in front of us. These are human qualities that we admire. We encourage our men and boys to work towards the human qualities that we admire. That's the way we go. That's a strength-based approach. And I've been saying this for years. If you are safe, kind and fair, if that's your common way of being, you can't be violent. You can't hold the two together. They're oil and water. Is what I do safe? Is it fair? Fair is general equality, and kindness is doing for other. Am I doing things for other? And then suddenly, as we know, lots of people quickly learn this, when I do things for other, it comes back as something positive for me. We then go to healthier forms of masculinities. We need to start celebrating men, like in this image. We can't, as I said, take on the movies, etc. But if in your council, if you can be looking at how you advertise a variety of men doing that list of things that we love and getting it out into the space where people see it. If you can't see it, you can't be it. Yeah? So the advertising around men and masculinities is men just doing lovely things that belong to that list you just came up with. I'm almost out of time. I want to finish with this. I think in the last 9-8 years of working in this space, I think we thought that the kind of family violence experts would fix the problem. I'm now contending that this is a whole of community response, and that if you're a next door neighbour and there's a young couple of kids live next door, you're on. You're on as a role model. And role modelling, you don't actually have a choice. You are a role model. When young people watch you, you're a role model. They're just watching how you do what you do. So I think we need to start talking to our community that when you're out and about, you're on. And giving them some basic training like this 15-minute session of what it is that we want to encourage our young men and women to strive towards, and what we want them to see as healthy and respectful relationships. If we get a community of young people who move through expecting that these are the values in positive relationships, then violence has to decrease. So I'm going to finish there. I've just taken you through what in our bigger program is 2 days worth of training. So that was a complete highlight reel. So I apologise for lack of depth. But I want to just suggest to you that we are in really, really positive territory here. The buy-in I'm getting, particularly from young men, it has been really, really positive. So I'm going to pause now and have some time for questions.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was really powerful, and your description of how language contributes to harming boys and men, as well as acts that harm women, was incredibly powerful. So thank you, Paul. That's amazing. So we have got some time for questions, and we'll start with the question. If there was just one thing that you wanted the people on this call today to do, and there's about 110 people on this webinar, which some of them are Moreland Council staff, some of them are Moreland community members. If there was one thing that you wanted people on this webinar to do, what would it be?
Start with yourself, and we've just got one word: notice. Notice how you do, what you say. Look, the most basic one of this is pink and blue. Pink's for girls, blue's for boys. Notice it, look at it and go, oh my God, that doesn't make any sense at all. There's no science behind it. And the extreme of that is where that goes, and I haven't got time to go there, but that eventually turns up later as slut and stud. Doesn't make any sense. We have words for it. So check your own, and then go and do the modelling. Yeah, you are an influencer, and I suppose it's my little narrative now. You're on. You are on. So when you're on, if you're coaching the local basketball team, if you're walking down the street, you are on, and bring awareness to what is it that I'm modelling.
Okay. Paul, thank you. And I think we'll all take away that phrase, you are on. I think that's something we can all think about and honour. That's wonderful. Now, Paul, we often see the sports community responding really well to significant social issues. We also often see male sports figures doing lovely things, to use your phrase of doing lovely things. We've got a question here. How can the Moreland Sports Club community, how can they make a difference in this space?
Great. For starters, the first thing to do, go online, type in clubrespect.org.au. So myself and the Victorian Women's Trust, we put it together. It's for clubs for exactly that. It's got all the tips and tools that you'll need. Create a safe, kind environment that celebrates everything about people more than it does winning. Yep. So the win at all costs, get rid of that. Create an environment where people love coming to this club. That it's a cultural thing, okay? Then often what happens as an incidental outcome is you start winning. And if there was an elite club that's done it, it's Richmond Football Club. Can't speak highly enough about encouraging their men to be vulnerable. These sorts of things. The Western Bulldogs Football Club demasculised their club a few years ago. So we've actually got elite modelling clubs. I've worked in many, many, many local clubs, and bring that, working on your culture. Oh, and the last one, you'll have club values. Enliven them. Don't just have them on a wall. Work out, let's say it's respect, work out what that means in your club. What does it look like? And then when you see someone do it, you celebrate it.
Yeah. That's fantastic, Paul. Thank you so much for that answer. Now we've got a couple of questions about if you're not in a sports club, what opportunities are there for the community to get involved, and particularly given that things have happened with White Ribbon, like how do people put their hand up to do more if they're in the community and they want to make a difference? Yeah,
it's a really good question, and White Ribbon was a great opportunity. It was doing good things and also had its foibles, unfortunately. So it has left the void. A couple of things. First of all, we are beginning training in the new year for anyone who wants to come to the Men's Project and learn this information. Local councils, and no doubt we can have a conversation with your local council, are rolling out our modelling of respect and equality. Last night I was delivering to 20 people from Hobson's Bay. The City of Melbourne starting soon. We're starting in Mornington. That's for local community members who want to get engaged, if they have a club or whatever or not. At the smallest level, if you don't have that club, you don't have to belong to a club. As I said before, it's looking for the people in your life and around you and how you're going to influence them.
Okay, thank you, Paul. That's great. And for people that are wanting to potentially explore those training opportunities that that Paul was talking about, so Paul's from the Men's Project in Jesuit Social Services, so you can Google that. Now, got a tough question here, Paul, which is when you're presenting these ideas to men and teenage boys and younger boys, what kind of pushback do you get, and how do you keep engaging with them despite their concerns or rejection?
Yeah, really, really good. The number one, there's two key ones. So in the early days working in this space, I was very, very raw, and I'd found that there would be a man always say, what about the women who are being violent to men? So what I do now is I announce that very early in my session and acknowledge it, because through those men, I've met men who their partner, being a woman, was violent. So it does exist. And then I turn it and say, we're here today because we know that the largest chunk of violence, 95% of violence in our community is men. And of that, 75% of that violence is men hurting men. Like, if we had a tablet to stop men's violence, men would be the greatest beneficiaries. So it's not anti-male. And then I flip to how this is going to be added value, healthier masculinities, is how much better that's going to be for you. The latest one, because I have a son and we know when we have our kids, we can bring that into our work. If the current man box, and go online and look at all our research on it, if the man box rules are the playbook for our kids, I don't want my son doing that playbook, because now we've got the outcomes of that playbook. No one in their right mind would sign up their children for an experience that lands them more likely to have suicidal ideation, more likely to be violent, more likely to have violence committed towards them, more likely to be in car accidents. So why would you stick to it? Why would you stick to it? And the last piece we always say is, we're not going to take anything away from you. Keep what you've got. We're going to suggest these add-ons, and then you can choose whether you want to keep the other stuff going or not. We're super confident that once you start being kind and fair and safe to other people, the other things fall away. So I continuously, rather than getting into an argument whether right, wrong, all these things, I just posit, why wouldn't you go this way? Why wouldn't you go towards a healthier form or way of being? And again, this research we have now backs us up, because rather than people say, well, how do you know that's going to happen? Our research has mirrored research in Europe, across the world. Apart from some little cultural differences, basically it's all the same.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. And to follow on from what you were saying there, do you want to make and I know you go into much more depth when you're presenting seminars normally, but do you want to comment on people who are parents of young boys or young girls or little kids? Do you want to comment on how early parenting can make a difference?
Oh, great call. So really, pre-parenting courses would be covering this if we had the ideal world going. Because if you work through from the very beginning, because we've picked it up ourselves, we talk a lot about habits and things that have happened to us. So it's in your mind that a boy's going to play with the truck and the girl's going to play with the book. It's in everyone's mind because it's been put there by a whole, movies, everything. It's there. And I said before, it's just bringing awareness to that and going, well, I'm just asking why. Hang on a minute, is that right? And giving the truck to your daughter and giving the ballet shoes to your son, and just see what happens. My kids followed a bit more. My daughter loves dancing. My son happens to be, he likes his gaming and all that sort of stuff. But you remain open. You remain open to all of these things. And the other thing is you educate your kids to be open. So when my son came home in grade 3, and here's how early things happen. So in grade 3, he came home and he said, Dad, I need a new water bottle. And I just assumed it was broken. And he said, no. I felt like I let him down. He said, no, you bought me a girl's water bottle. Now, he had that water bottle from prep, and it was purple. And on that day, another peer of his in grade 3 embarrassed him, laughed at him, brought up that he had a girl's water bottle. See, now that young person didn't innately have that from birth, you see. So as adults, you're on all the time. And the kids pick it up, they take it to school and say, ha ha. And seriously, the year later, it was, ha ha, you're gay. And my son came home and said, Dad, what does gay really mean? Because a girl called me, and it was a girl in this instance, called me gay, and the whole class laughed. Now, there's a man box word right there in grade 4. Okay, so we can't start early enough. In our creches, it's, all our early childcare centres, all our staff really need to have this vision and be able to have lovely, positive conversations with the parent who might come in and say, oh, I don't think I'm a big fan of my son dressing up as a girl. And having clear, positive responses to how you're going to reframe that as, oh, what a wonderful way for him to express how he was feeling today. Lots of the boys dressed up that way. He's selected it. He's had a great day. Your son wearing a dress is not going to end up that one day he's lesser of a man because of this event here and now. And that's the education piece. This is a new education for our community. And as my last slide said, someone like me, wasting our time, we can't change it on our own. So we have to activate every influencer in the community, and I believe every adult is an influencer. And just to turn these people's dial just a little bit and realise when you're coaching, you're not just coaching to win a game. Every boy or girl in that team is looking at how you do what you do. And if you yell when it's a bad result, guess what? First lesson in yelling when things go bad. Yeah. Wonderful opportunity when you don't yell. You just taught those kids you don't have to yell when things go bad. That's where we're coming from.
Wow, Paul. Quite a lot of quite intense advice there for parents in dealing with really difficult and incredibly important early parenting situations. Thank you. I think we've got time just for one brief question. And the question is, for people who are wanting to raise issues about masculinity with their partners, and this could be in the context of opposite sex partnerships or same sex partnerships, are there any particular tools that you have for a really constructive dialogue about these difficult things? And suggestion being made about the dyad technique, but you may have other techniques that you use.
Can I suggest, I know I'm talking about this piece of research as if it's the only thing that's ever arrived on the planet, but if you showed your family the Man Box video, or you went in and grabbed one of the fact sheets, it quite equivocally shows that we learn how to do our masculinity from the community we live in. They're the messages we take. It's very hard when you're in the man box to get out of it because it's self-policed. But the outcomes that none of us want for anyone, none of us want, like I can go back and look at the man box and it'll show that's why our tradies have got some of the highest rates of suicide at the moment. That real boys club mentality, it hurts us. It hurts us. And then on today's date, I have to raise, and then it hurts the people we love and care for. It hurts people in our sphere of influence. Now, I'd start there because that posits the problem, but it posits with research and then it turns to a solution. And the solution is not to demasculinize people, it's to empower them with more wonderful skills, and that one day they are the person that a young person really admires and they've got those qualities we said before.
Oh, Paul, thank you so much. I feel like I've got so much to think about in terms of masculinity and the notion of the box, which to me is a bit like the notion of a prison, except hopefully the box might be a bit easier to break out of, I hope, if we could all use these tools and training that you're talking about.
Yeah.
People on the webinar, we've had so many great questions and engagement, but we haven't had a chance to answer them all, Paul. But I just want to thank you, Paul, for your amazing and heartfelt and very skilled responses to the questions that came up and for your presentation. We hope there might be an opportunity to collaborate further with you in the future as well.
Yeah, love that.
And we just absolutely wish you all the best with your incredibly important work, your incredibly important role modelling. So thank you, Paul, so much.
So much for the 110 people that turned up. That's a wonderful sign. As I said before, I think the tide's turning. I think that we're moving, and hopefully today's piece would encourage people to go to our website and look at some of the other things that we've got in there to give you the tools to go and do what you can do. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Paul, from the Men's Project. Now, there's more to come, a little bit more to come. We've got some videos, but first of all, I just wanted to reiterate that some of what we're discussing today might be distressing for some people. And if you feel you want to talk to someone, you can call 1800 RESPECT, the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Service. Now, I want to thank some of our key local partners who are so crucial to preventing family violence. And that's Victoria Police, the Northern Community Legal Centre, and Women's Health in the North. And they all have long-standing commitment to the Moreland community and to keeping people safe. Now, they all agreed to create short videos for us to view now in support of our mutual commitments to saying no to violence. So I want to give a big thank you to Helen Riseborough, who's CEO of Women's Health in the North, Jenny Smith, who's CEO of Northern Community Legal Centre, and Detective Sergeant Kylie Snart, who's from the Victoria Police Family Violence Unit in Fawkner. And we're going to see some videos now.
My name's Helen Riseborough and I'm the CEO at Women's Health in the North. We know that the key to preventing violence before it occurs is to embed gender equality in public and private life. Backed by this evidence at WIN this year, we've produced Taking Action for Gender Equality Every Day. It's a series of original artworks and campaign materials that promote and normalise gender equality across the life course in both the public and private spheres. The artworks and messaging highlight actions that we can all take that will meaningfully contribute to creating gender equality and thereby preventing violence against women. These are actions that each and every one of us can take in our everyday lives. Actions such as encouraging children to play with toys regardless of gender stereotypes, or learning how to be an active bystander and call out sexism and stereotypes and discrimination when we witness it. Perhaps it's challenging patriarchal ideals of leadership or holding conversations in our workplaces about how policy and procedures facilitate the flexibility to combine work and caring responsibilities for everybody, and ensuring that this flexibility is accessible and it's accessed by people of all genders. At WIN, we envision a world free from violence, and we see every day as a day to take action for gender equality. Please join us at Women's Health in the North and our partnership organisations across the Northern region in making this a reality. Thank you so much.
My name's Jenny Smith and I'm the CEO of the Northern Community Legal Centre, which provides free legal services to vulnerable people in Melbourne's northwest, including in the Moreland area. And we support Moreland Council this year and support the 16 Days of Activism campaign more than ever, because we know what the impact this year has been from the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that from UN reports and others that family violence and violence against women has escalated due to a whole range of risk factors increasing, such as unemployment and economic insecurity. We also know that the rates and the level of mental health and wellness in the community has increased, and with this, rates and severity of family violence have also increased. At Northern Community Legal Centre, we've seen an increase in the proportion of clients who are victims of family violence this year. Over 50% of our clients are victims of family violence. In responding to the community, what we've done is to make sure that information about the legal help that is available to respond to family violence and family law has been available and was made available urgently in a range of languages of the community. We've also ensured that we increased the capacity of our mental health practitioner to support our clients and also to train our workers to ensure that we can better identify the impacts of mental health. This year, we hope that the 16 days of activism results in increased understanding for the need for respect and equality in the community.
My name is Kylie Snart and I'm a Senior Sergeant of Police currently at the Fawkner Police Station. My role has been as a Detective Sergeant with the Family Violence Investigation Unit working out of Moreland for the last 2 years. Victoria Police has a strong commitment to the prevention of family violence. The recent inception of the Family Violence Investigation Units as a result of recommendations of the Royal Commission speak volumes of the dedication we as an organisation have to reduce these crimes. These dedicated units take an approach not seen before in our organisation where they ensure family violence survivors are supported through all streams of family violence assistance, being civilly through the courts, through the criminal process and engagement with our co-partner referral services. The hard work of our local family violence unit was recently highlighted through a 2-part Australian story series in relation to a family violence survivor of stalking. I'm proud to say that this investigation had a positive outcome for the survivor and has set a bar in this area for how family violence survivors should be treated by police. During the recent COVID-19 pandemic, a strengthened commitment took place through Operation Ribbon, where Victoria Police ensured a more holistic approach to assisting family violence survivors, not only through the criminal and civil streams at court, but with a greater welfare and community support through this unprecedented time of need in our community. Moreland has shown a demonstrated increase in family violence reports from 2018 to the last published data in 2020. This increase was by approximately 10%. At the moment, there are no published statistics for the effects the pandemic has had on family violence reporting, but as you would be aware, there was a very visible media campaign ensuring family violence survivors were aware of the services that were available during this time. Victoria Police's key focus in its response to family violence is breaking the cycle by demonstrating respect towards women and promoting equality and respectful relationships. Thank you for your time today and commitment towards raising awareness towards family violence, sexual offending and child abuse.
Well, they were really important messages and important information we heard there from those 3 organisations, and I hope everybody took away something from that. We have come to the end of our webinar today. I want to say a big thanks to the Mayor, Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon, for her heartfelt call to action on addressing gender inequality and violence. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Paul Zappa for sharing his really important work with the Man Box and with men and kids across Australia. We all took a lot away from that, I think. And I want to thank Kylie Snart, Jenny Smith and Helen Riseborough for their really important messages and perspectives that they brought through those videos as well. And I want to thank everybody on this webinar. It is really heartening to see how many people across Moreland are interested in addressing the terrible plight of violence and gender inequality. And I think we've all heard how we've all got a role to play. We're always on, and what we do makes a difference. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming and observing the National Day of Elimination of Violence Against Women. And we wish everyone well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.